Well, we have the young lady of the hour coming to us now. Her name is Deb Esposito Montgomery. Wrong. That's Deb Montgomery-Esposito. And she is a story coach. I'll let her tell you all about what that is, why it's important to us, and why we should know if we're living out our life stories in fear, with force, or are we flowing with it? So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Deb Montgomery-Esposito. Hello, Deb.
We have that spotlight. There you go. Hi. Hi, everyone. Hi, Dr. Joyce.
Hi, Deb.
How are you?
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here. I'm glad to be back. Are we still there? Uh-oh. Okay. I'm excited to be here again for another year of Warrior Wellness Weekend. And I have had such a tremendous time. I've enjoyed all of the presentations. I'm reordering a little bit of my presentation to include some of that. There was some great stuff there. So again, I'm Deb Montgomery-Esposito. I'm a creative media and story coach. I help my clients find and tell their stories with impact. But today we're going to talk about how story relates to fear, force, and flow, and a little bit more about our personal stories, particularly around fear, which has been an undercurrent throughout a lot of things that we've been discussing for the weekend. So what are we going to do? Chris? Thanks. We're going to talk today about fear, force, and flow. We're going to put out a definition, talk about the science behind fear, a little bit about that, baby science, nothing too heavy. We're going to look at fear and stress as it relates to stress, talk about some of the physical and mental impacts that come about as a result of stress. Stress in our stories. I'm going to share some stress busting tips with you. And I have a little bit of a surprise about stress, which might be a little good news for all of us. And I'm going to share some resources if you'd like to continue moving in this direction once we're gone from here. Chris? First, I want you to sit and think about whether fear is hurting your life. We've talked about a lot of fear-inducing topics, everything from coronavirus to race relations and Black Lives Matter and wellness or dis-ease issues. Think about those kinds of things while you're looking at this video. I didn't do this video. I usually do all my own videos, but I really like this one and I thought it hit home and I wanted to share it with you. So Chris, we can play that now.
We must begin to look at what are the things that we can do that would put us on some firm footing in life, that will enable us to do some things and use some powers that we have, that many of us go through life never ever discovering that we have those things going for us. And part of that, I believe, is knowing what it is your life worth. What is it that gives your life a sense of meaning and purpose? Because once you find that, it puts you in your power place. See, if you know what your life work is, I encourage you to start working on it. If you can't do it all at one time, do just a little bit of it. And if you don't know what it is that you showed up to do, if you don't know why you're here, I encourage you to find out what your purpose is here. What is the meaning of your life? And I say to you that if you begin to take a conscious effort to find out what it is that you're supposed to do, I say that it can literally save your life. I said that it can literally save your life. See, when you're going someplace and you already know how much you're going to make, you already know how far you can go, you're in a dead-end position. It erodes your self-esteem. It lowers your sense of yourself. It creates some inner turmoil. It creates an emptiness in you. So I say that your life is worth finding what it is that you're supposed to do. Do find out what your work is and hold on to it and don't let your dream go. Don't let it go. See, and here's something else I want you to begin to look at. Why is it that most people don't pursue their dreams or don't do better than what they're doing if they're capable of doing it. I think that many of us don't go the next step because we don't know what to do yet. And I say that the reason that we don't even explore the possibility of what to do is because subconsciously we don't believe that it can happen for us, and we don't believe that we deserve it. So here's what I'm suggesting. How much time do you spend working on you? How much time do you spend every day working on your dream? In the last 90 days, how many books have you read? In the last year, what new skill or knowledge have you acquired? What kind of investment have you made in you? So I'm saying that as you begin to look at where you want to go, if you want to make it today, and things are changing so fast you have to literally run to stand still, I'm saying that you've got to make some conscious effort to begin to work to develop you. Here's something else. Most people are not living their dreams because of fear, ladies and gentlemen. Fear, limited vision, and lack of self-esteem is what keep most people doing things they don't want to do. The same reason that people stay in relationships where they're abused or they're unhappy or it's unfulfilling. They can't see themselves beyond that relationship. They can't see themselves enjoying life without that person. They think that this is all that they can do. The same reason that people get stuck at a certain level in life. They can't see things being better for them. And they think that this is it and this is all they deserve. This is all they've ever seen. It's been passed on to them. And they think that this is it for them. Fear is the most subtle and destructive of all human diseases. Ladies and gentlemen, fear kills dreams. Fear kills hope. Fear put people in the hospital. Fear can age you. Fear, ladies and gentlemen, can hold you back from doing something that you know within yourself that you're capable of doing, but it will paralyze you. And it seemed like you're in a hypnotic spell. And I ask you a question, what is the benefit? What's the benefit of allowing fear to hold you back? What's the benefit of giving up on yourself, of not stepping out on life and taking life on? What is the benefit for you? What's the plus in that? It's one of the things I had to ask myself. So I didn't want to make any mistakes. I wanted everybody to like me. I wanted to be perfect the first time I did something. It's not going to happen. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to hurt some folks' feelings. You're going to create some enemies whenever you decide that you want to begin to take life on. You've got to ask yourself, how long am I going to allow this to hold me back? It said, fear is false evidence appearing real. That is an illusion that we create in our mind. It is a state of mind that can be changed. So let's look at how we can begin to take some steps to restructure that fear, to begin to expand our visions of ourselves, to begin to increase our self-esteem. Webster said that self-esteem means confidence and satisfaction in oneself. Look at your life right now. Whatever you've done up to this point in time, your life is working. Whatever you have produced, it came out of you as a result of the kind of person that you have become.
So, is fear hurting your life? It affects all of us. The question is what we allow fear to do in our lives. You know that I'm a media coach and I'm a video producer. Yet I have many stories, as we all do. And one of the stories that's working in my life right now is that I call it the sandwich. To the left is my daughter Nia, to the right is my mom, and I am that person in the middle. And I had an unexpected life change. My mom came to visit for 3 months 5 years ago, and she never left. Since then, there have been a lot of ups and downs. Trauma, drama, it's all been a part of our story. And my mom now is suffering from a degenerative cognitive disease, and it's stressful. And I've probably moved from fear, and a lot of force as I've tried to affect her condition, save her life, balance what's going on between my daughter and my relationship. My daughter's 19. We have a wonderful relationship. This puts a lot of stress on it because she's my co-caregiver along with my mom. And it brings up so many things. I know there's some of you here that are caregivers as well. It brings up any unresolved issues that you might have in relationships. And that's a really good place to look at what can you control, what can you change, what do you really need to let go. And sometimes that comes after a little bit of force. So it's been a part of my story. And because I'm a story person, I see things in two ways. I have the experience of being in it, and I also have this like out of body experience where I observe it, and I've observed myself moving through, sometimes not being as much in control as I would like to be, but I also know that you stay with it because you've accepted the call, you're at this point, and that if you move through that, you can move from fear to flow. And I'm not in every single moment, but I'm in a lot more moments than I was. And I hope as we go through a little bit about fear and what you can do about that, that if there are areas in your life that you'll be able to make some of those adjustments as well. Chris? So let's talk about fear. What is fear? We've used the word a lot of times. We're going to break it down a little bit. Fear is an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation or the awareness of danger. Chris? And we're talking about force. I didn't really see anything about force that fit what I was trying to communicate, so I made up a definition. So it's Deb's word. The sometimes unproductive compulsion to respond within a relationship or a situation in a manner that requires an excessive emotional or physical effort, usually marked by unmatched personal benefit. So in other words, you're pushing a little poop against the tide, so to speak, and you're trying to make something be something that it isn't or function in some way that it just doesn't work. And it gets to a point where it's better to make some different decisions, and we'll talk about that when we hit flow. But let's look at fear a little bit more, Chris. So there are a number of different types of fear, because the fear is actually on a spectrum. We've been tossing it around, but I think it helps to break it down a little bit. You've got what we call phobias. That would be our fears of things that, some of the most common of which are fear of flying, fear of public speaking, believe it or not, fear of eating in public, fear of heights, fear of animals. My thing is snakes. You see the little baby down there. That's really a fear of incontinence, and that's actually a fairly common fear that people have. Fear of bodily fluids, such as blood and other waste. And on the other side of our little fear tree, we have more societal and environmental fears, joblessness, economics, coronavirus, our current pandemic, Black Lives Matter. That's not just Black Lives Matter, it's also that fear that goes along with systemic racism and sometimes the brutality that's associated with it. Fear of being sick or caring for a loved one that's sick. That came up for me, not first, but as you go through it, you realize how much bigger it is, and sometimes it creates this fear state. Fear of harm coming to us through violent means or as with some of the things we've been seeing on the news, fear of other people that look like you or with whom you identify being shot, because then that brings that all home to you. So that inspires a lot of fear. There are environmental fears. We talked a lot about 5G during this weekend and the dangers of radiation, and there's some things to really, really be concerned about there. So I hope everybody was really plugged in. There are other environmental issues, global warming, people care about the water, dumping in our lakes and rivers, things like that. So those are bigger fears, and they don't stay with us in the same way as some other fears. But what are some of the things that come up as a result of this fear, Chris? What happens? Basically, within a fear situation, the amygdala, and actually it's amygdala, there are two of them, they're one on each side of the brain, gets activated. And it's taking in information and saying, there's a problem here. And it alerts the prefrontal cortex, which is the place of higher decision-making, executive functioning, and the hippocampus, which is commonly known as a seat of memory. And they have a conversation between the two of them. So what they're saying is, the amygdala is saying there's a problem, and the other two are saying, is this really a problem? They're analyzing, evaluating, and seeing if we need to send out the alert. And if that's the case, then a response is triggered and the body responds. Chris? So what happens? We've all been in this state, you start to, have a little anxiety, and your breath rate increases, your heart rate increases, your blood vessels constrict, your muscles start to pump with blood to get ready in case there's a need for you to have extra strength. There's glucose that increases in the body to give you the energy that you might need in order to respond to the fear. Chris? And with phobia and fear, there are a lot of symptoms, everything from headaches to sweating, shortness of breath. Some people are, shake. There's also another response that you might have with that would be flight. We're not going to really deal with that because while it does, freeze. While it does come up, these are the ones that I think we're most concerned with. The stomach pain, which long-term could create things like an irritable bowel and things like that, insomnia, sleep issues, weakness, fatigue. Chris? So those are big stressors. Those are big things, but those aren't the things that get us on a day-to-day basis. And I think a lot of the things that we've been talking about as we're talking about wellness and disease and health, when we're younger, we have some different day-to-day stressors than when we're older sometimes, and some overlap and we don't really get rid of them unless we really work in those areas. So when we're younger, we might think about repeating historical familial failures, not wanting to find a parent like a parent that failed you, not feeling like we're good enough. Not feeling like we're smart enough, not feeling like we're understood or seen or heard, not feeling like we can get anything right or that we do things right. As we get older, if we haven't gotten rid of those, there's some additional ones that sometimes come to the party, like, are we going to have the economic stability that we want as we move into retirement? So it was good that we had someone here to talk about financial wellness, because it is really important. And as I'm dealing with my mom, I tell you, it is not cheaper when you get older, and getting sick is very expensive. So it's just a little cautionary statement there. We wonder sometimes some things that are coming up for people, and as we were listening to Deborah Fraser Howe's, I got from her kind of a wistfulness as she thought back to the 60s and was reflecting on where we are right now. And I personally was heartened by her saying that this was different. And I'd like to believe that's different. I'm going to hold on to that because it is a much better feeling than to fear. We also have thoughts about the things that we haven't done, regrets that we have in life. So these are just a few of the things that could be coming to us. Chris? So when we're in a state of fear that's chronic like this, Daniel Goleman wrote a book called Emotional Intelligence. And in this book, he talks about a lot of things, but one of the things he does is talk about the amygdala and what happens when you have a response where it sends off that signal and everything's on high alert, and we go and we stay in that system, in that state. That basically what's happening is that we're constantly thinking about the things that we're worrying about, the things that are upsetting us, frustrating us, keeping us in this state of stress. And so that nothing else is able to really rise up. We can't make really good decisions. We can't think about more positive things. We're in this kind of cycle that is really very hard to break. And from this space, we say and do things and make decisions that are not as healthy for us. And we're kind of relying on old patterns because nothing new can really take hold. So it's really, really important that we do something to disrupt that. Chris? I was going to tell this story, but I really want to leave some extra time for questions if we have them, and a little more time to talk about where we can go. So we're going to skip this one, Chris, if you would. Again, if you look at this, just look at all the different things that can cause us stress. And it can be things that are so small. I mean, you see here, procrastination, that can create stress. I remember a time when I thought I did my best work at the last minute, under stress. That's when I was most creative. But the reality was I was procrastinating. So I was at the last minute. I'm always going to bring my best to something, and it always came out all right. So it reinforced the whole, this is where I work best, but it isn't. It's a stress state. And I had to kind of create a whole nother way of being where I was planning better. I was giving more time. I have a little ADD. So I had to come up with some tools and some ways to move around that so that I'm not as stressed as I'm working on projects. Chris? So chronic stress, that's what we're talking about away from the phobias and our bigger environmental and social type stresses. And it's a low intensity type of fear. Anxiety, worry. What you really need to know about it is that it can seriously harm your physical and mental health. And that is not as marked in the larger stressors, because we can turn those off. Our chronic stress is with us as we're trying to move through our day and be productive. Chris? So the physical effects of stress are really kind of the same in chronic stress as with the others, although we're starting now to add degenerative things with respect to our health. So we're now entering into that state where disease starts to form, where we have an aggravation of other underlying things. And so you've got a comorbidity thing happening along with the stress. It makes everything worse. We need to look at it. Chris? So there are mental effects of stress. It can lead to irritability, anxiety, depression, headaches, insomnia, sleeping too much. Chris? And there are also some behavioral effects that go along with that, such as overeating, undereating, substance abuse type things, social withdrawal, not doing the things that normally bring us pleasure, not spending time with people that we care about. It's just really kind of a turning inward as opposed to being able to be our true and healthier, wholesome selves. Chris? Something that's really important to know about stress is that it affects us differently in different stages of our life. And it starts as early as the prenatal stage. So if we have, say in pregnancy, someone is particularly stressed, what ends up happening is that there is an increased risk for that child to have learning disabilities, be more prone to drug abuse and stress later on, and a shrinking of the hippocampus in their adult years. For children and adolescents and adults, the symptoms are the same, but you might not see some of those. We won't see necessarily the reduced hippocampal thing, but we have an interaction with the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And basically that axis, when it's activated in that way, it produces a type of steroid which can access the brain, which is what's causing this problem here. With children and adolescents, that whatever it is that happens with that damaging effects of that may not be reversible in adulthood. So we have to also give our children strategies and coping skills to deal with stressors. And now is a really, really, really good time to start because it's a lot on them. Some they understand, some they don't, but their bodies are absorbing all of that. And for adults, we're a little more fortunate because generally speaking, when the stressor ends, then the symptoms reverse themselves. Chris? So here we are. What's a better way of being? We're at flow. And I'm saying that that is the state of being that results after one has identified, you know what it is bothering you, and consistently applied stress-reducing strategies as a means of achieving and maintaining true prosperity. And I'm not just talking money, I'm talking about that fullness of life in every area of your life, mind, body, spirit, relationships, everything that's important, finances, everything, life balance, and it brings an overall sense of peace. Chris? So how does this apply to story? I love stories. So if you see me lighting up and getting excited, it's because I really, really think everything is connected to story. It has an impact on everything, and everything has an impact on it. Within story, there are quite a few plot models, but this one is the hero's journey, and it's one of my favorites. And I heard it articulated so well by Sylvia, who did the financial wellness piece. And I just, you told your story so well, if you're still listening. But I'll use her story to give you a little bit of the arc. She was saying that she was at a job that she was not feeling in the same way because of how it was she felt that her peers and her management or coworkers were responding to her and a place that she was trying to take them. So that would be our exposition piece. The inciting incident was the moment she decided that she wasn't sure if she wanted to deal with that. And she didn't immediately accept the call. So the inciting incident is when you first get the urge. After that, she said, I'm going to do something about that. And she took the leap. And that's when things started to move along. When she moved out, she started working the business while she was working there. And that's when it got interesting for me. What she said was she had to reevaluate and reimagine herself and take parts she didn't know existed, confront things in herself. The need to confront things in herself, she needs to do more than ever. And she was grateful for the opportunity, and the shift required so much more from her. And that's all what's happening in the rising action, and the things that are happening that are creating challenges for her to move forward, take her to that rising action where you have the climax, where there's that one big spot or place where it's kind of a go forward or go back. And she went forward. It's a turning point in her story, and she's able to come back and bring that wonderful elixir to all of us in the form of financial wellness information. The problem for many of us is that as we're moving along, we're kind of going along and some idea comes up or something comes in, you get on the scale and you decide, I don't want to be that number anymore. I have a girlfriend that said that and it still tickles me. But you don't want to be that number anymore. And so then you start doing something about it. You might start a diet and exercise program. You get frustrated and you go back to that exposition place, which is where you started. So I love this quote: there are no perfect life plan formulas. It's a roller coaster with various exit ramps. And what we don't want to do is exit before we have all that God has for us in this life experience. Chris? So how do we do that? I have some flow tips for you. And so this book that we're going to go through together is Tips for Becoming the Hero in Your Own Life Story. And I believe we all are heroes. It's just a matter of whether we choose our story, because it's not stress that kills us, it's our reaction to it. Chris? So the first thing I'm going to recommend for you is to make a list of all the sources of your fear. And this is the big brain dump time. Write down everything that makes you shake a little, that makes you a little nervous, that makes you want to say no when some part of you wants to say yes. The things that keep you up at night, and write them down. And then start to prioritize them from most to least to most. If you don't want to prioritize it, you don't have to, but do go back and look at them and write down whether it's an internal thing or whether it's an external thing. Internal meaning, I'm in control of this. This is something that's on me. I'm doing this. I'm doing this to me. You know, we're really quick to say what someone else is doing to us or what a situation or circumstance is, but it's a little bit harder to look at those things and say, this is me, you know, this is my stuff. So you really do need to assume responsibility for your own stuff. Chris? Tip two, question the validity of all your fears. Are they real? I mean, is it really, really true? Or is it a story that you're telling yourself? If you're sitting in a situation where, let's just say my boss hates me, is it really true? You know, is it a situation where you're late for work, you don't make deadlines, you're difficult to work with, there have been complaints? It may not be your boss, sometimes it's us. And if we make those adjustments, we see that situation move around and the stress reduce. If it's not a true story, you have an opportunity to write yourself a new story. Chris? Tip three, make commitments to yourself and set goals. We can have all the wishes we want. If we do not create goals and for ourselves and then implement them, we will find ourselves at that exposition space on that hero's journey and be later in life kind of regretting the things that we did not do. So think about what you want your life to look like. You know where you are now. What do you want it to be? Let go of that picture of what it is and then start thinking about what is it that you want from your life. And be sure when you're choosing things for your life that you choose things that are truly, truly meaningful to you, because you're going to need a lot of energy to move forward, to move from where you are to where it is that you want to be. So your why has to be bigger than your fear of failing. Chris? So 4, no more excuses and no procrastination. Avoid following the path of least resistance. And I want to clarify, there are 2 ways you can interpret this. The path of least resistance is also the path of flow, where you're just not pushing against anything. You're not trying to force anything to be what it isn't. You're just kind of flowing and accepting what is and finding that space in there that works. But then there's also that path of least resistance where you're like, that's the harder way. So I'm going to go the easier way because there's less resistance. It's in these spaces where we have this resistance that we tend to grow. It's kind of like iron being sharpened in the fire, right? Create a reasonable schedule for making the change. Things don't tend to happen overnight. They don't. You can't eat an elephant all at once. So come up with a plan that you can then divide into parts so that you can do a little bit, and then celebrate along the way your successes, because it's really important to notice where you are as being different from where you've been. Chris? So tip 5, deploy the 4 A's: avoid, alter, adapt, and accept. Avoid what you can. So if you've got really, really difficult people in your life, you don't feel good when you're around them. They don't make you feel good about yourself. If you're at a job that you really, really don't like, I mean, it's really time to think about what that does to your very soul, to be in a place that feels heavy and where you feel stressed going every day. I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow, but I'm saying think about, are there other things you can do? Because the moment you begin to think about what else you can do, the world opens up for you and you start to see things a little bit differently, and opportunities just have a tendency to present themselves. Alter what makes sense. So maybe you don't want to get rid of some of the people in your lives or the things in your life, but maybe you change how you participate with those in those activities. Maybe you're in an organization and you've taken leadership roles all the time, and maybe it's time to step back and just be part of the committee, and that reduces the stress level because maybe the committees aren't as functional as you'd like them to be. you know, when my mom came in the last year with my mom living with me, I had been on numerous boards, and I got to a point where I had to look at my life and say, I've got to let these go. Because with my mom and the boards and the businesses and homeschooling, which I also do, it became stressful. And that was something that I could release. And so I did. Change your expectations and your attitudes. Sometimes if we just change how we feel about a situation and what we expect from a situation, we start to see that it is not as stressful as it has historically been. If you are in a relationship with someone who is a very fixed personality, they're immovable, and you know they're going to behave in a certain way, then don't continue to interact with them expecting them to be different. Kind of concentrate on those things that you do enjoy and avoid, entering into those spaces that are going to create angst or stress. And accept what is, as a huge stress reducer. When in dealing with my mom, I spent a lot of time trying to save her. And I feel a little choked up, but there was a moment when I had to accept what is. And with accepting that came a little bit of sadness, but also came a lot of peace in that space. And it was stress reducing. And I was able to be there for her in a whole nother way as well. Chris? Change your mind. I'm a mindset geek, and I really do believe in the power of changing your mind changes your life. So establish a growth mindset. There are two different types of mindset. There's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. The fixed mindset, you can hear it in the language. I've always done it this way. Well, that's just really how I am. Or, well, this is what works for me. And while sometimes that's good, we also need to always keep our minds open for a new idea, a new way of looking at something, because it might just be better than that thing that you're holding on to. And it leaves you open for people to bring information to you, and for you to recognize when there are other opportunities and other information that are available around you. Eliminate stinking thinking. Let's stop talking badly about ourselves. I can't do that. I'm not creative. Things never work out for me. And we want to flip that around. Things are always working out for me. I am the product of a creator. Therefore, I am a creation, and everything I do is evidence of that. I am a creative being. You just change the languaging. So it's watching your thoughts, watching your words, and remembering that if you believe something, it's true for you. That doesn't necessarily make it true, but it's true for you. So as we're believing things, make sure they're things that we want to see in our lives and not things that we don't. And do your best. This is an acronym that I came up with when I was homeschooling my daughter, and we had it on a board in the kitchen, and it says, do your BEST. I think she thinks I wanted her to be perfect. That was never my goal. I always just wanted her to bring her best to the table. And it stands for better every single time. So as we're going through things, we should be learning, constantly learning. It doesn't stop with school. It doesn't stop when you're 18. We're constantly learning. And so each time we do something, we should be bringing the lessons that we learned in the last thing into the next thing. And so we're constantly on this growth path. Chris? 7, heard a lot about this. I'm not going to beat this horse. Fuel your body. The mind affects the body affects the mind. We want to take heed to a lot of the really great advice that we've been getting over the past few days from your feet, or as Dr. LaJoyce likes to say, from the rooter to the tutor, like all of these things. We want to pay attention to our body. We want to pay attention to our emotional well-being. We want to do things that feed that and feed the health of it. So, fuel your body, Chris. Tip 8, focus on expansion. Again, I'm talking about growth. Growth is every time we expand, we open up more opportunities that we're ready for. And when we're ready, they will come. I truly, truly believe that. So it's a good thing to believe. Consider a daily meditation or yoga practice, a prayer practice, create affirmations. That's that, the I ams are really good. They can be biblically based if that's how you write it. I am more than a conqueror. Run that list, write it down, put it where you can see it. For a long time, I had one on my bathroom mirror, and I had to dodge to brush the teeth, but it was there so that this is what I'm seeing all the time. Create affirmations for the life that you choose to live. And really start to see it. They did a study on, they had a pianist playing, and then they hooked up electrodes to the brain, and they paid attention to what areas of the brain fire up when he was practicing. And then they asked him to sit and imagine practicing, just imagine it. And what they found was the same areas of the brain would light up. So you're able to, it's kind of like working double time without actually having to be doing the thing, imagining yourself in that place. See it in living color. What does it look like, smell like, taste like? Who are the people around? How do you feel? Feel that joy. So as you're seeing that, this is fueling your desire to continue moving forward when sometimes it just feels like you can't move another step. You can. You absolutely can, but these are tools that you can use to keep it moving. Find your tribe, whether it's your church, a social group, a group of girlfriends, a significant other. We have business cohorts, there are Facebook groups, support groups, whatever it is. I am fortunate enough to have my own little tribe, and I love them. They tell me when my stuff stinks. They tell me when I'm forgetting the lessons that I teach, because it's much easier to teach than it is to always do. And we are that for one another. So you want those people around you, and if you don't have them, you need to find them. Chris? Live in the now. Yesterday's gone, and we have no idea what's coming tomorrow. The present is our present. It's our gift. So be present in every moment. Notice things. Notice what's around you. Find some things. You might start with 3 things. Something good in every experience, in every day, in every person. The more you start to look at the positive things, the better you're going to feel. You've got all those good hormones going as opposed to the stress hormones. Forgive yourself. Sometimes we carry a whole lot of guilt and shame along with us. And I think, sometimes you might spend a lifetime dropping them off, because when you get rid of some, others will bubble up. Just keep, I see you. I noticed you. There was a time I needed you. I no longer need you. I'm letting that go. And just have a practice of noticing and releasing. Giving is so important to, it's so important to joy, real joy. We live, I believe, in a world and in a time and place where, whether you call it karma, whether from the biblical standpoint, give and it'll come back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing. It has a way of growing beyond the original gift, and it blesses both the giver and the receiver. So give. It's a good feeling on both sides, and love deeply. Just you can even love people that you can't have really close to you, and just concentrate on that energy that comes from love, and it reduces stress as well. And it clears you to really think about the things that you really want, as opposed to really concentrating on things that have already happened or that you're worried about not happening. And it keeps you grounded right here in the present. Chris? And our last tip is discover your purpose. So we're kind of ending where we began. If you have no idea what it is that you want to do, there are a number of ways that you can start to uncover that. My daughter is going through that process right now. All the books that I'm going to share with you have been on her book assignment list. You never know where you're going to find that little kernel of those pieces, and they come together and they kind of gel, and you have that epiphany, but it comes because you put yourself in the way of information that would expand you. So other people's stories are great about their journeys, are an inspiration. Even the people that we heard on this retreat for this weekend, there was something that I got from absolutely everyone that was here. Religious and spiritual practices can offer clues. Sometimes if you look at the word, let's just say, and you're seeing in there where people got their calling, and how did it go for them, and what was the journey for them. You can find story everywhere that helps you see your story better. Identify what you love. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And people are often amazed that things that they love can be translated into a career. And if you don't believe that, you could look at all those social influencers. They were things that they did, and all of a sudden they're, making lots of money and doing something that they really enjoy. So there are lots of ways to make a living. It doesn't have to be something that you don't like. Get feedback from people who know you. Make sure that they're people that you can trust, and that people who really, really care about you, and just ask them, what do you see in me? What qualities in me do you think are special? What does it feel like to be around me? What kinds of things could you see me doing? And sometimes they'll reflect back to you what you're not even noticing in yourself, and they can be a great resource. Chris? So finally, we have the Harvard study. And in the Harvard study, this is the surprise about stress that I was going to share with you. There were 30,000 participants, and they were looking to figure out if there was a relationship between the stress experience and the impact that stress has on health and mortality. So basically, is what someone thinks about stress a determining factor in whether they are become ill or die from a high level of stress? Chris? And what they found, surprisingly, was that those with high stress, that did not believe that stress would have an adverse effect on their health or cause them to die from the stress, had a lower risk than those who didn't even experience a lot of stress. Now, they don't know, and we don't know exactly why that was. It could be because people who are already thinking about things like stress already get that there are some other things they need to put in place, and so they were already more protected by the practices and habits that they have. But I still think that it's really, really good news that there is a mind-body connection, and it can be very positive. Chris? So here's some helpful resources. It's the last thing I have before we go to Q&A. We have The Four Agreements, which is a wonderful book on the origins of belief. It talks about what we believe and why we believe it, and how some of the things that we believe have been passed on to us. They're things that we've either inferred from what was going on around us as we were growing up, or things that people told us were true. And so as you're thinking about things about yourself, about the world, always ask yourself the question, why do I believe that? Where did that come from? And so this is really calling you to look at what you believe in a different way. Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was an Auschwitz survivor. And what he brought home, his elixir that he brought back from his journey through suffering was, and he's a psychologist as well, was that man can benefit from suffering because through that he can find meaning for life. And that meaning can be found regardless of your situation. And that means, you can have life in prison and live a meaningful life. It's, again, another decision to be in flow. Mind Hacking by Sir John Hargrave is really a book about reframing your thinking. If you're looking for something to help you, get those negative thoughts out of your head and kind of change your mindset, it's a 21-day adventure that is a really good start there. Daring Greatly by Brene Brown is really dealing with vulnerability. Sometimes we're trying so hard to be strong, that we're closed. And vulnerability is such a powerful space to live in. And I think she does a really good way, really good job of communicating that in that book. The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho, is an allegorical adventure of the hero's journey. And so it's a wonderful book. My daughter just finished it. And she said she's going to have to go back and reread it. So you're seeing that sometimes we're waylaid, and delays are not denials. And as we're moving along, we need to keep moving and bloom where we're planted. Sometimes there's something for us to put up and to pick up, in those places where we may just think we're stalled out. It's never the case. The One Thing by Gary Keller gives you practical, you say, oh, I can't do this. I don't have time. I can't manage this. He has a system that is really, really easy for you to develop a practice that allows you to move forward a little bit, and then it starts to move exponentially after that. And again, Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. It's what really drives success. It's EQ, in his opinion, not IQ. And he talks a lot in here about self-awareness, about oh my goodness, I forgot one, and I should have written it down. Self-awareness, a kind of self-determination, being self-directed, being able to do what it is that you've set your mind to do, and also, and I think most importantly, about empathy. So these are some wonderful resources, and there's a space on the right side. Another really, really helpful resource is Whatever It Is Your Spiritual Book, because that kind of ties all of this together. So that's what I have for today, Chris. And I ask you that as you start to think of fear, force, or flow, that you choose flow, and remember that you always, always have an opportunity to choose your own story. So that's it.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. I want to pick up a little bit about what you said about procrastination. Apparently, that struck a chord with a couple of people, especially April. She says she's the master procrastinator. April, I'm going to do something for you, help you get it together. I'm going to send you a good doctor notebook along with your stylus. Because great. We need to get it all together there. And when you see the notebook, let it just be a reminder of this day. And I have a note on my refrigerator. I like to put up notes and affirmations and handwritten, typewritten, by signs. Mm-hmm. I got them everywhere. And one of them is from Stephen Furtick. He's a dynamite young preacher out of North Carolina somewhere. But he says, and I'm just going to read it from my refrigerator, I want you to hate the pain of procrastination more than the pain of being disciplined. So hate procrastination more than discipline.
I like that.
I love it. It's on my fridge. It's been there since July 9th, 2 years ago. And,
oh my gosh, yeah.
And I always date stuff. So the procrastination thing will cost you extra money. It will cause you to beg for a grade that you should have gotten a better one on, but the grades decline every day you don't have it in. I cannot stand when a student who I know is a good student does not submit their work on time. I have no choice but to give you a lower grade because that's what the university mandates. But
right.
Just be on top of everything that you're supposed to be on instead of procrastinating. And with Deb's busy lifestyle, Deb, how have you avoided the pitfall of procrastination with all that you have to do with mom and homeschooling and everything?
I have to tell you that I really don't have a choice. I loved The One Thing. I really, really enjoyed that book. And one of the things, I did a combination of what he said, and there was another one of the mindset gurus, and I combined the two of them. So basically, you take the first hour and a half of your day. So if that means getting up earlier, then get up earlier. And kind of like in finances, it says pay yourself first. It's that practice. So you're going to spend 20 minutes doing something that grounds you. So whether that's a meditation practice, a gratitude practice, a prayer practice, whatever that is, 20 minutes of exercise, 20 minutes of learning something new, and then a half hour to an hour of things that you really need to take care of, you know, your priority list. And so no matter what else happens in the day, you know, you've covered this particular time. You can divide up the time like works for you. I double my time because I need everything to be magnified in the bits of time that I have. So
Yeah.
if I can't do the meditation thing, but I can do the learn something new and the exercise together and make that a half hour. So it might be a book on tape that I'm doing. And then you've got to organize enough, write down what it is that you really need to cover, and then put them in order and say, today, don't have it be so much that you're like putting it off. It's going to be
right.
this, you know, because it's very frustrating and stressful to look at a list that's like, you know, the list goes on all the way down, and you've done 3 big things, but you're still looking at 10, doesn't matter how small they are. That's 10 things I didn't get to do. And then you start that stinking thinking, you know?
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
you know, that's it.
Like I like to save certain things. Like I like to save folding clothes for my me time. And that's when I'm like, when I want to watch something that I've recorded. I don't get to watch anything as it's happening. So I like to watch things that I've recorded and fold the clothes. I love doing that. In fact, the first day of this, I literally took a nap on the first day of the webinar, and then I folded clothes and watched what I had been recording, and so that I was nice and relaxed. And I did that even yesterday because of course, they say that folding clothes is the most undone chore in the house, and I can testify to that. But when I definitely do it, that's when I do it. And that's when I catch up. And that's when I might learn something new space. So we appreciate that. And I like what Karen here had to say. She said, Deb, very inspiring. Thank you. We need to take more responsibility for our happiness in life. And because what we think will make us happy is often not really the truth. Touche, Karen, touche.
Thank you. Thank you guys. I'm looking at the comments.
Yes.
I truly do have a little ADD, and I think it makes you incredibly creative. So I embrace it. But if I were to look over here, I would have been, a squirrel. I can't do it.
You can go back and read it later.
Okay. So were there any questions that were in here that?
Diane says, I tend to get the information for organization, yet don't get it done. I get stressed when others tell me how to do it and when to do it. She said, help.
Okay, now say that again. I'm not sure.
Okay, she said, I tend to get information for organization, yet I don't get it done. I get stressed when others tell me how to do something and when to do it. I need help. So she's receiving information on how to get organized, but when other people
doesn't want to do what people are telling
her, it stresses her out.
There are a couple of things, maybe it's a little bit of changing the language that you have. I don't like people to tell me what to do, because that's a little bit of fixed thinking, right? Like I've always done it this way, but it's not working. So, I'm really open to hearing ideas that others have. In the absence of that, you can take what they've given you and look at it and say, well, this part kind of works for me. I can do this part and still achieve it in the same way. Maybe you can customize it so that it fits you. I'm not exactly sure what parts don't work in terms of organizing. Like for my daughter, we did a whole lot of trying to get organized and nothing really, really worked. And then we came up with, there was on AppSumo, AppSumo. They have it's appsumo.com, and one of the offers that they had, free for a year, and then there's a cost to it, is an app called Marvin, and she loves it. So she's able to organize her life, and then it's going to tell her, you can put your tasks in it, and then when you want to do them and the way that you want to do it, and then it kind of keeps you in an accountability space. So you can see it and you're not writing, you guys say me all the little pieces of paper and they surround me. And She's helping me move to the Marvin space. I don't have time for setup, but it's working really, really well for her. So I don't know whether it's that you don't have a process that works, because certainly there are things that you can do, you just haven't found the thing that works. And I know that that was a barrier for us, was finding something that really resonated for her, or change your mind about how you feel about the things that are coming. It's kind of like, you have a diet and go, well, I don't like this and I don't like this. I'll do these parts, but then the diet doesn't really work because it's designed to work with all those parts kind of working together. So hopefully that's helpful.
Your daughter, what is the acronym for BEST?
Better every single time. Better every single time. It's about growing. It's not about being perfect. It's about growing.
Got it. Well, we want to thank you so much for being with
You're
us and
welcome.
sharing with us and being here today. You are a joy. We thank you. We appreciate you. We love you. And
thank you.
May you continue on your journey as you have, and do it well, and continue to teach others about story. Thank you, Deb Montgomery.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.